The vast chamber of the Galactic Assembly fell silent as Director Tejo addressed the gathered representatives of 17 sentient species. It has been confirmed. The human colonies of Proxima Centauri and Ta Ceti have been evacuated. Earth has ceased all communications. Their diplomatic stations in our territories have been abandoned. Historian Do Yun adjusted his ocular implants, recording the proceedings for the archives of civilization. As the foremost expert on human behavior among the Kaurani people, he found their sudden disappearance baffling. Could they have faced extinction? Asked Representative Jinwoo from the Silicon Confederacy. Unlikely, Do Yun interjected. The evacuation was methodical, coordinated. They took their technology, their cultural artifacts. This was planned. In the following weeks, reports confirmed what many suspected. Humanity had withdrawn completely from galactic affairs. Their territories stood empty, their outposts abandoned. Ships sent to Earth returned with images of orbital defense systems that prevented approach, but no signs of communication. Some celebrated the departure of the unpredictable humans. Others, like Do Yun, began the solemn work of documenting what might be the end of human participation in galactic civilization. None suspected this was merely the beginning. Do Yun sat alone in his research chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing the last known human activities before their disappearance. The data made no sense. Humans had been expanding their influence, establishing new trade routes, and even planning the joint research initiative with the Kaurani. Then suddenly, nothing. Access recording. Human Ambassador Kyung. Final address, Do Yun commanded. The air shimmered as a human figure appeared. Ambassador Kyung had been different from previous human representatives, more reserved, more observant. In his final appearance before the assembly, he had said little of substance, merely thanking the galactic community for centuries of cooperation. But Do Yun had noticed something others missed. A slight tension in the ambassador's posture, a careful choice of words that hinted at deeper meanings. The door to his chamber slid open. Director Tejo entered, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of stress among the Kaurani. The council wants your preliminary report tomorrow, Tejo said. They need explanations. I have theories, not explanations, Do Yun replied. Something made humans retreat, something they chose not to share. Tejo moved closer to the displays. The Marini are already moving ships toward abandoned human territories. They claim salvage rights. That would be unwise, Do Yun said. Why? The humans are gone. Are they, or have they simply stepped back? The next morning, Do Yun presented his findings to the council. The chamber was smaller than the assembly hall, but no less imposing. 9 representatives from the most powerful species sat in a semicircle, their biological differences requiring various environmental accommodations. Humans have always been unpredictable, Do Yun began, but never irrational. Their departure was too organized to be a response to internal crisis, too sudden to be natural evolution, too complete to be coincidence. Councillor Suna of the Marini leaned forward, her crystalline body reflecting light in sharp patterns. You're suggesting what exactly? That they detected something we didn't, something that frightened them enough to abandon centuries of established presence. Humans, frightened. They were the most aggressive species in the assembly, scoffed Councillor Juan of the Voidborn. Do Yun activated a new display. 6 months before their departure, human research vessels were deployed to the galactic rim. Upon their return, human military spending increased by 300%. They began recalling citizens from mixed communities. Their communications traffic with their homeworld doubled. Murmurs spread through the council. They were preparing, Do Yun continued. The question is, for what? 3 cycles later, Do Yun found himself aboard the exploration vessel, Steadfast Journey, approaching the last known location of a human research mission. The council had approved his expedition, though more out of curiosity than concern. Captain Minna guided the ship through the unfamiliar sector. Sensors are picking up unusual readings ahead, she reported. Energy patterns I've never seen before. The main view screen showed only empty space, but the instruments told a different story. Something had happened here, something that left traces in the fabric of reality itself. There, pointed Science Officer Bora. Subspace distortions consistent with massive energy release. The ship's AI constructed a visual representation, a sphere of influence nearly 2 light-years across, where natural laws appeared slightly altered. Could weapons do this? Asked Captain Mina. No known weapons, Do-Yun replied. But this might explain why humans left. They discovered something here, something they weren't prepared to face, or something they needed time to understand. As they prepared to leave, Communications Officer June called out. Captain, we're detecting a signal. Faint, but definitely artificial. Source? Mina demanded. That's just it. It appears to be coming from Earth direction. But it's using frequencies we don't monitor. If we hadn't been specifically looking at unusual patterns. Do-Yun felt a chill. They're still out there. Watching. Waiting. When they returned to the assembly, Do-Yun's report caused immediate division. Some species demanded immediate investigation of all former human territories. Others insisted on preparing defenses against whatever threat might have caused humanity's retreat. The Marini, ignoring all warnings, sent a fleet to claim the resource-rich human colony on Ta City. 3 days later, the fleet disappeared. Search vessels found nothing but debris orbiting the planet, and defense systems far more advanced than anything humans had possessed when they left. 50 years passed. The mystery of humanity's disappearance became historical fact rather than current concern. Species expanded into the void humans had left, careful to avoid Earth itself with its impenetrable defense grid. Do-Yun, now old even by Kalrani standards, continued his research. He had moved his entire operation to a small station orbiting a dwarf star near the former human frontier. Few visited him. Most considered him obsessed with an obsolete question. Until the day his sensors detected something impossible. A ship of unknown design appeared at the edge of the system. It moved in ways that defied normal physics, covering vast distances instantly, then hovering motionless. Do-Yun's communication system activated without his input. A face appeared on the screen, humanoid, but subtly different from humans he had known. The eyes glowed faintly. The skin had an almost luminous quality. Historian Do-Yun, the figure said, your persistence has been noted. We have been watching. Who are you? Do-Yun asked, though he already suspected. We were once called human. What we have become has no name yet, but the time of silence is ending. We return soon. The screen went dark. The ship vanished. Do-Yun's hands trembled as he recorded his final entry in the historical archives. Humanity hasn't vanished. They have transformed, and whatever caused them to retreat into silence all those years ago, we will soon face it together. 300 years later, anomalous energy readings appeared at the edge of charted space. The signature doesn't match any known civilization, said Science Officer Mina, studying the holographic display aboard the exploration vessel Distant Horizon. Captain Ju frowned. Is it natural? Impossible. These are artificial structures on a scale we've rarely observed. Someone is harvesting energy from an entire star system. The Distant Horizon approached cautiously. In the darkness between stars, they detected movement. Vessels of unfamiliar design, ignoring all standard communication protocols. When they reached the source of the energy readings, the crew stood in awe. A massive spherical structure surrounded the star, capturing nearly all of its output. It was technology beyond anything the Galactic Assembly possessed. Captain, called Communications Officer Hyun. We're receiving a transmission. It's in human language. After centuries of silence, humanity had returned to the galactic stage. Captain Ju stood frozen for several moments, processing this revelation. Humans were no longer just legends or academic footnotes. They were here now with technology that defied understanding. Put it on the main screen, she ordered, straightening her uniform. The crew watched as the communications panel flickered to life. The face that appeared shocked them all. It looked almost human, but with subtle differences. The eyes had an unusual glow. The skin seemed to shimmer with tiny lights just beneath the surface. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonic undertones that no natural vocal cords could produce. Greetings, vessel distant horizon. This is Overseer Junho of the Human Collective. You have entered a restricted development zone. Science Officer Minna whispered. They know our ship's name. How? Captain Juwu raised her hand for silence. This is Captain Juwu of the Galactic Assembly exploration vessel Distant Horizon. We detected unusual energy patterns and investigated according to assembly protocols. The figure on the screen smiled slightly. Of course, curiosity remains a constant across species. However, you should return to assembly space immediately. This region is not safe for your current technological level. The dismissal in the creature's tone made Juwu's scales bristle with indignation. With respect, Overseer, humans abandoned galactic affairs 3 centuries ago. This space was never claimed by your people. Things change, Captain. The borders of human space have expanded. Navigation Officer Taeyong interrupted. Captain, I'm detecting more vessels approaching. At least 20, possibly more. The image of Overseer Junho flickered as the ship's sensors redirected power to defensive systems. Captain Juwu, we mean no hostility, but you cannot remain here. What you're witnessing is not for unprepared minds. Unprepared? Juwu questioned. The assembly represents 17 advanced species. Advanced by your own definition, Junho replied. His image suddenly split into 3 identical versions that spoke in perfect unison. We have moved beyond such limitations. The demonstration sent a chill through the command deck. Whatever these beings were, they were no longer simply human. Science Officer Minna worked frantically at her console. Captain, I'm recording everything. The energy output from that sphere, it's beyond anything in our scientific models. They're not just harvesting the star's energy. They're somehow enhancing it. Han's console began blaring alerts. Multiple objects approaching. They're surrounding us. On the view screen, sleek vessels appeared, their surfaces rippling like liquid metal. They moved with impossible precision, forming a perfect circle around the distant horizon. Your vessel will be escorted to the boundary of this system, Junho announced. For your safety. Captain Juwu considered her options. Fighting was pointless. Running was impossible. We came in peace, to explore. The assembly will want to establish diplomatic relations. Not yet. All 3 versions of Junho said simultaneously. We have not completed our preparations. Preparations for what? Juwu demanded. But the transmission ended abruptly. The screen showed only the surrounding ships, their hulls now glowing with soft blue light. They're generating some kind of field around us, Minna reported. I can't explain it. Our engines are responding to external commands. The distant horizon began moving, guided by forces beyond their control. Through the viewport, they watched the massive stellar structure grow smaller. Its surface pulsed with patterns that hurt the eyes when viewed directly. Record everything, Captain Juwu ordered. The assembly needs to know. 3 days later, the distant horizon arrived at the headquarters of the Galactic Assembly. The journey should have taken weeks. Whatever the humans had done to their ship had somehow compressed space itself. The assembly chamber erupted into chaos when Captain Juwu presented her report. Representatives from all 17 species shouted questions, demands, and accusations. Some called for immediate military response, others for diplomatic missions. Elder Representative Daeyan, one of the few who remembered the original human departure centuries ago, raised his gnarled hand for silence. This changes everything, he said, his voice thin but commanding respect. The ancient records speak of humans as partners, not gods. What they have become. He shook his head slowly. Captain Juwu stepped forward. The technology we observed could easily have destroyed us. They chose restraint. Or perhaps they simply didn't consider us worth the effort, countered Representative Suho of the Voidborn Collective. The debate raged for hours. Finally, a decision was reached. A formal diplomatic mission would be sent to the edge of the newly detected human territory. The most advanced ship in the assembly fleet, the Unity, would carry ambassadors from all 17 species. Captain Juwu was selected to command this mission. As she prepared, Science Officer Minna shared her findings from analyzing the sensor data. "Look at this," Minna said, pointing to a complex molecular structure. "I believe this is what humans have become. They've merged with technology at the quantum level. These aren't machines or even cyborgs. They're something entirely new. Can we communicate meaningfully with such beings?" Juwu wondered. "They chose to speak with us, not simply destroy or ignore us," Minna replied. "That suggests they retained some connection to their original nature." The Unity departed a week later, carrying the hopes and fears of 17 civilizations. As they approached the coordinates where they had encountered Overseer Junho, they found something unexpected. A small station floating in space, clearly built to accommodate non-human visitors. A transmission came through as they approached. This time, the face that appeared was fully human, without the unsettling modifications they had seen before. "Welcome, representatives of the Galactic Assembly," said a woman who introduced herself as Ambassador Soman. "We apologize for the alarming nature of our first contact. We have established this facility for proper diplomatic exchange." Captain Juwu studied the woman carefully. "You appear different from Overseer Junho." Ambassador Soman smiled. "We take many forms now. We thought this one might ease communication." As the diplomatic team prepared to board the station, Communications Officer Hyun made a discovery that he shared only with Captain Juwu. "Captain, I've analyzed the transmission patterns. This station, the Ambassador, their projections, incredibly complex, but not physically present. Whatever the humans have truly become, they still choose to hide it." Captain Juwu nodded. "Keep that information restricted. We'll proceed as planned." As the shuttle docked with the station, Captain Juwu couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting was not a new beginning, but merely the next step in a plan centuries in the making. Whatever humanity had become during their long silence, they were now ready to reveal themselves, but only on their own careful terms. The true nature of their return remained to be seen. The Galactic Assembly Chamber hadn't been this full in decades. Representatives from every known civilization gathered to witness humanity's return. When the human delegation entered, gasps echoed through the chamber. They appeared fundamentally changed, taller, with subtle modifications that suggested both genetic engineering and technological integration. Their ambassador, Sunho, spoke with a voice that seemed to resonate on multiple frequencies. "We apologize for our abrupt departure centuries ago. When we detected signals from the void between galaxies, we realized our technological development was insufficient to meet what was coming. We chose isolation to advance without constraint or distraction." Director Yunha of the Assembly responded cautiously. "And now? Now we return to reclaim our territories and offer protection to our former allies." Within weeks, human ships had re-established presence in their abandoned systems. Their technology demonstrated capabilities that bordered on the impossible: instant transportation across vast distances, manipulation of gravitational fields, even limited alteration of space-time itself. Some species welcomed their return. Others viewed it with suspicion, but none could deny that the balance of power had shifted dramatically. The reception following the formal assembly session buzzed with tense conversations. Representatives huddled in small groups, discussing the implications of humanity's return. Ambassador Sunho stood alone near a large viewport, gazing out at the stars with eyes that occasionally flickered with internal light. Director Yunha approached him cautiously. She had reviewed the ancient records extensively before this meeting, but still felt unprepared. Her species, the Nanari, had been close allies with humans before their disappearance. "Your announcement raises many questions, "Ambassador," she said. Sunho turned, his movement unnaturally smooth. "I understand. We expected confusion." "Not confusion. Concern. You speak of reclaiming territories that have been settled by other species for centuries. And this offer of protection. From what, exactly?" A slight smile appeared on Sunho's face. "You think we mean to conquer? The thought has occurred to many here today. If conquest were our goal, this conversation would be unnecessary." Sunho gestured to the gathering. "We could have returned without announcement, without permission." Across the room, Representative Woojin of the Marini Collective watched with his 4 eyes narrowed in suspicion. The Marini had expanded most aggressively into former human territories. They had the most to lose. Woojin approached, his crystalline exoskeleton clicking softly. "Your kind abandoned these systems. Under galactic law, abandoned territories may be claimed after 50 cycles. Our settlements have existed for nearly 300 years. Sunho nodded. "We recognize the complexities. We propose a gradual transition. Your colonies may remain under shared jurisdiction." "Shared?" Woojin's voice sharpened. "You offer us permission to keep what is already ours." Before Sunho could respond, the lights in the reception hall dimmed momentarily. Outside the viewport, a massive human vessel appeared, seemingly from nowhere. It dwarfed the assembly station, its hull rippling with patterns that hurt the eyes. "A demonstration?" Director Yuna asked quietly. "Not intentional," Sunho replied. "That is the Pathfinder, our science vessel. Its appearance here was scheduled but seems to have triggered your station's defensive protocols." Representative Woojin made a gesture of dismissal. "Intimidation tactics change nothing. The Marini Collective will not surrender our legally claimed territories." Sunho's expression remained calm. "Perhaps you misunderstand the situation. We do not come as conquerors, but as refugees returning home." "Refugees?" Yuna questioned. "Your technology suggests otherwise." Sunho's eyes flashed briefly. "Technology born of necessity. The signal we detected. It comes from beings who have consumed 1,000 civilizations. They move slowly but with purpose. They will reach this galaxy within 50 years. A hush fell over those close enough to hear. "You expect us to believe this convenient threat?" Woojin challenged. "Where is your evidence?" "The evidence will be provided," Sunho replied. "But understanding it requires technology beyond what most species here possess. We offer to upgrade your scientific facilities. So we must accept your help to verify your claims," Yunha noted. "A circular argument." Sunho sighed, a strangely human gesture from his transformed body. "We anticipated your doubt. Therefore, we are prepared to demonstrate." He raised his hand, and a small object floated from his palm. It expanded into a holographic display that showed a dark region of space. As they watched, the darkness shifted, revealing what appeared to be an enormous structure moving slowly against the backdrop of distant stars. "This recording was taken near the Andromeda Galaxy," Sunho explained. "What you see is merely the outer shell of their fleet. They call themselves the Harvesters. They consume all technological life, incorporating it into their collective." Director Yuma studied the image carefully. "If this threat is real, why return now? Why not stay hidden and safe?" "Because isolation is no longer viable. Our calculations show they have detected this galaxy's technological signatures. They have altered course, and while our advancement might save humanity, it cannot save us all without cooperation." Over the next several days, delegations from each species met privately with the humans. Some emerged from these meetings visibly shaken. Others seemed cautiously optimistic. The Marini remained openly hostile, refusing further discussions. On the 5th day, a formal agreement was presented to the assembly. Humanity would reclaim their core systems, but allow continued habitation by other species under joint governance. In exchange, they would share limited technological advancements and provide protection against the approaching threat. The vote was not unanimous. The Marini and 2 smaller alliances rejected the proposal. Nevertheless, it passed with substantial majority. As the session ended, Representative Wujin confronted Sunho in the corridor outside the chamber. "This charade will not stand," he hissed. "The Marini will never submit to human oversight." Sunho regarded him calmly. "This is not about submission. It is about survival. We survived for millennia before humans existed. We will survive long after your kind has truly vanished." Sunho's expression showed genuine sadness. "I hope you reconsider. What approaches cannot be fought with conventional means." That night, as the assembly station orbited the neutral world of harmonious exchange, most representatives celebrated the historic agreement. But in his private chamber, Representative Wujin sent encrypted instructions to the Marini fleet. They would not surrender their territories peacefully. 3 days later, Marini warships attacked the human vessels that had entered the contested Ta Ceti system. Their weapons, the most advanced in the assembly, struck with precision. But the human ships remained untouched. The energy weapons seemed to pass through them as if they weren't there. Then, without firing a single shot, the human vessels simply disappeared, along with the entire Marini fleet. Hours later, the Marini ships reappeared in orbit around their homeworld, completely intact but powerless. On every view screen throughout their vessels, a simple message displayed: "We do not wish conflict. Please reconsider." The demonstration sent shockwaves through the assembly. What had been an abstract understanding of human advancement became visceral fear, or for some, profound hope. Director Yunha met with Sunho following the incident. "You could have destroyed them," she observed. "That would have defeated our purpose," he replied. "We did not advance to conquer but to preserve. All life in this galaxy faces the same threat." As human ships continued their methodical return to abandoned territories, the reality of their transformation became increasingly clear. They were no longer simply another species in the galactic community. They had become something else. Guardians, perhaps, or potentially the most benevolent dictators in history. Only time would reveal which. The first attack came without warning. A fleet of crystalline ships emerged from the darkness beyond the galactic rim, destroying an outpost of the Silicon Confederacy. At the emergency assembly session, Ambassador Sunho confirmed what humans had feared centuries ago. "We call them the Void Collective. They consume technological civilizations to fuel their expansion. We detected their scout signals 300 years ago, and knew conventional technology would be useless against them." Captain Zhu, now representing the Kaurani Defense Force, voiced what many were thinking. "You knew this threat was coming and didn't warn us." "We needed time," Sunho replied. "Warning you would have caused panic without providing solutions. We withdrew to develop the means to fight them." The assembly chamber erupted into arguments, but when reports of a second attack arrived, the debate ended. The Void Collective had destroyed an entire system in minutes. Reluctantly, the assembly voted to form a coalition with humanity. As preparations began, Do-hyun's descendant Minho, now the chief archivist, wondered if even humanity's advanced technology would be enough to face what was coming. The command center of the assembly defense station hummed with tense activity. Representatives from all 17 species worked alongside human technicians, preparing for what might be the greatest threat that the galaxy had ever faced. Minho stood before the historical archives display, studying the few images they had captured of the Void Collective ships. Their crystalline structures seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Something about their design triggered a memory in his mind, an ancient Kaurani myth about beings who lived between stars, feeding on the light of dying suns. Searching for answers in the past, a voice asked from behind him. Minho turned to find Ambassador Sunho standing there. Up close, the changes in human physiology were even more apparent. Faint lines of light pulsed beneath his skin in complex patterns. "My ancestor, Do-hyun, believed humans left because you found something terrifying," Minho said. It seems he was right. He was a perceptive being. Sunho replied. "We honored his work in our archives. His theories came remarkably close to the truth." Before Minho could respond, an alarm sounded. The main display activated, showing a tactical map of the outer systems. A cluster of red markers appeared at the edge. "They're earlier than predicted," said Sunho, his voice suddenly carrying harmonic undertones that seemed to vibrate through the room. Captain Juwu rushed into the command center. Years had passed since her first encounter with the returned humans. Now she commanded the combined defense fleet. 3 void ships approaching the Lyra sector, she announced. "All civilian vessels have been evacuated." Ambassador Sunho nodded. "Deploy the first line." The tactical display showed human vessels moving to intercept. Unlike the warships of other species, these craft appeared almost organic, their hulls flowing and shifting as they moved. "What exactly are your ships?" Minho asked quietly. "Not ships in your traditional understanding," Sunho replied. "They are extensions of ourselves, living technology." On the screen, the human vessels approached the invaders. The crystalline ships of the Void Collective were massive, each one nearly the size of a small moon. They emitted no detectable energy patterns, no communications. They simply moved with relentless purpose. "Their first attack will be," Captain Juwu began. Before she could finish, beams of dark energy shot from the void ships. But instead of striking the human vessels, the beams seemed to bend around them, as if reality itself warped in their presence. "They're using gravity distortion weapons," explained Sunho. "They pull apart the atomic structure of conventional matter." "And your ships?" asked Minho. "Exist partially outside normal spacetime, a concept we developed during our isolation." The battle unfolded in ways no traditional military strategist could have predicted. The human vessels never directly fired weapons. Instead, they created complex patterns of energy fields that seemed to confuse and disorient the void ships. When the crystalline vessels fired again, their own energy beams twisted back upon themselves. One of the void ships began to crack, dark energy leaking from its fractured surface. Then it imploded, collapsing into itself until nothing remained but scattered particles. A cheer went up from the assembled representatives, quickly silenced when they saw Sunho's grim expression. "This was only a scouting force," he said. "Their main fleet approaches. What you just witnessed depleted significant resources. But you destroyed them," Captain Juwu pointed out. "This time. But our methods cannot be sustained indefinitely against larger numbers." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Victory against the scouts had been difficult enough. How could they face an entire invasion fleet? Later that night, Minho found himself unable to sleep. He returned to the archives, searching through ancient records for any clue that might help. The combined knowledge of 17 species must contain something useful. He was surprised to find a human there. Not Sunho, but another of their delegation. She introduced herself as Engineer Era. "You seek alternatives," she said. It wasn't a question. Minho nodded. Ambassador Sunho seemed concerned despite the victory. "With good reason. Our technology can resist their attacks, but at great cost. Each engagement weakens us." Era gestured to the archive display. Ancient symbols from a dozen civilizations scrolled past. "We've studied your histories," she continued. "Many of your species faced extinction-level events in your development. Yet you survived through adaptation. Are you saying we should adapt to become like you?" Minho asked. "No, we're saying we need your perspectives. Humans chose one path of advancement, but there are others." The next day, a new plan was presented to the assembly. Instead of relying solely on human technology, they would combine the unique strengths of all species. The Silicon Confederacy's crystalline communication networks could disrupt void collective coordination. The Kalrani's biological adaptation expertise could help protect organic life. The Marini's energy absorption systems might counter the enemy's weapons. Not everyone embraced this collaborative approach. Some species, seeing the power of human technology, argued for complete dependence on their protection. Others remained suspicious of human motives, believing the entire Void Collective threat might be an elaborate deception to establish dominance. Representative Wujin, still bitter from the Marini defeat, spoke against the plan. "We're asked to trust beings who abandoned us, then returned as gods. How do we know they don't serve these invaders?" Ambassador Sunho's response was unexpected. He stepped forward and, for the first time, revealed what humanity had truly become. His form shifted, the appearance of solid matter dissolving into a complex matrix of light and energy, only vaguely humanoid in shape. "This is what we sacrificed to prepare," his voice echoed, now clearly artificial. "We are no longer what we were. To face the void, we became something new. But in doing so, we lost much of what made us human." The assembly chamber fell into shocked silence. "We cannot defeat them alone," Sunho continued, his form solidifying back into human appearance. "Despite our advancement, we lack what you still possess: diversity of thought, of biology, of cultural perspective. That diversity may be our greatest weapon." As the assembly debated, reports arrived of more Void Collective scouts appearing in neighboring systems. Time was running short. Captain Jiwoo took the floor. "I've witnessed both human power and human restraint. If domination were their goal, we would already be conquered. I believe their warning is genuine." Finally, the assembly voted. The coalition would proceed with the integrated defense plan. Each species would contribute according to their strengths, while human technology provided the foundation. As preparations accelerated, Minho worked alongside Engineer Era, integrating historical knowledge into tactical systems. The Void Collective had encountered other galactic civilizations before. Perhaps their previous victims had discovered weaknesses. "Your ancestor would be proud," Era commented as they worked. He believed humanity had not abandoned the galaxy, but was preparing for something greater. "Was he right?" Minho asked. "Or did humans simply evolve beyond needing the rest of us?" Era's expression grew solemn. "What we became is powerful, but incomplete. In our isolation, we lost something essential: connection. We need you as much as you need us." The warning sensors activated before she could say more. On the main display, a massive distortion appeared at the edge of charted space. The Void Collective main fleet had arrived. Hundreds of crystalline ships, each larger than any they had seen before. The galaxy's first true unified defense force moved to intercept. At its heart were the advanced human vessels, but surrounding them were ships from all 17 species, each modified with hybrid technology. As the fleets approached each other, Minho couldn't help but wonder, had humanity's centuries of silent preparation been enough? Or was the galaxy about to face extinction despite all their efforts? The answer would come soon enough. The final battle took place in the void between spiral arms. The combined fleet of 17 species faced the approaching Void Collective armada. Human ships took the vanguard position, deploying technology that bent the laws of physics. Leading them was Admiral Jiho, her consciousness existing simultaneously in her physical body and throughout the fleet's neural network. "They're adapting to our conventional weapons," warned Tactical Officer Yuna as the first wave of attacks barely slowed the enemy advance. Admiral Jiho's expression remained calm. "It's time. Deploy the Transcendence Protocol." Across the human fleet, crews activated technology they had developed during their centuries of isolation. A synthesis of organic consciousness and quantum computing that allowed them to perceive and manipulate reality at its fundamental level. The space between the fleets warped. Stars seemed to flicker as local space-time folded according to human design. The Void Collective ships, suddenly finding themselves in a reality where their technology functioned unpredictably, began to falter. In that moment of advantage, the allied species launched their coordinated attack. Each race contributed their unique technological strengths in a strategy humans had designed to exploit the enemy's weaknesses. When it ended, the threat was contained, not through destruction alone, but through the fundamental alteration of the Void Collective's nature. In the aftermath, humanity revealed their final secret. Their centuries of advancement had been guided not by conquest, but by preservation. The technology they developed would now be shared gradually with their allies, elevating all sentient life toward a new evolution. As Minho recorded these events in the archives of civilization, he reflected on how isolation had transformed humanity not into conquerors, but into reluctant guardians of the galaxy they had once abandoned. The stars looked different from the observation deck of the assembly station. Minho could not explain exactly how, but the very fabric of space seemed altered by the battle that had unfolded 3 days earlier. Perhaps it was merely his perception that had changed. Behind him, the celebration continued. Representatives from all 17 species gathered to mark their victory. Music from a dozen worlds filled the air, creating a strange but somehow harmonious blend. The fear that had gripped the galaxy for months had finally lifted. Minho preferred the quiet of the observation deck to the noise of celebration. As chief archivist, he felt the weight of responsibility to document these events properly. Future generations would study this moment, when everything changed. "Not joining the festivities?" a voice asked. Minho turned to see Admiral Jiho approaching. She moved with the fluid grace that all humans now possessed, but something about her seemed more grounded, more connected to her original humanity than many of her kind. "I'm trying to find the right words," Minho admitted. "How does one describe the rewriting of reality itself?" Jiho smiled. "Perhaps some experiences defy complete description." 3 days earlier, Minho had watched from the command center as the battle unfolded. The Void Collective ships had advanced with cold precision, their crystalline structures absorbing energy weapons as if they were nothing. The first line of defense, conventional warships from the assembly fleet, had barely slowed their approach. Then Admiral Jiho had given the order, the Transcendence Protocol. Words that meant nothing to most species but changed everything. Human vessels had begun to glow with impossible light. Their forms became fluid, less solid. The space between the opposing fleets had seemed to bend, to fold. Stars visible through the viewports had flickered as if someone was turning them on and off. What exactly happened out there? Minho asked now, looking at the Admiral. "We temporarily altered the fundamental constants of physics in a localized field," Jiho explained simply, as if discussing the weather. "The Void Collective's technology relies on specific physical laws. We adjusted those laws." Minho tried to comprehend the scale of such power. "And you could have done this at any time." "No." Jiho's expression grew serious. "The protocol requires immense energy. We needed the combined power of all our ships, and even then, we could not maintain it for long. If the Allied fleet had not struck at precisely the right moment." She didn't finish the thought. She didn't need to. In that crucial moment when the Void Collective ships had faltered, confused by the changed rules of reality around them, the Allied fleet had launched their attack. Each species contributed their unique strengths: Myrini energy absorption technology, Silicon Confederacy crystalline disruptors, Kalrani biological countermeasures, and a dozen others. Technologies that alone would have been useless against the invaders, but together, in that moment of vulnerability, had proven decisive. The largest void ships had been destroyed outright. Others had been captured. But most remarkable had been what happened to the remainder. Human ships had surrounded them, creating complex energy patterns that seemed to rewrite the very nature of the crystalline entities. "You didn't just defeat them," Minho said. "You changed them." Admiral Jiho nodded. "Destruction alone would have been temporary. Their consciousness exists partially outside normal space. They would have eventually returned." "So what did you do?" "We altered their fundamental nature, their driving purpose. The Void Collective consumed technological civilizations because that was their programming from those who created them eons ago. We rewrote that purpose." From behind them came the sound of approaching footsteps. Ambassador Sunho joined them at the viewport, his form slightly translucent in the starlight. "The Assembly Council is requesting your presence," he told Admiral Jiho. "They wish to discuss the integration plan." After the admiral departed, Minho found himself alone with the ambassador. The being who had first announced humanity's return to the galactic stage now seemed somehow diminished, as if the battle had taken something from him. "Your people paid a price for this victory," Minho observed. Sun Ho's gaze remained fixed on the stars. 7 of our ships could not maintain cohesion after the protocol. Their crews dispersed. When one exists partially outside normal spacetime, death takes a different form. Their consciousness may eventually reform, or it may become something else entirely. We don't know. Minho considered this strange form of sacrifice. Yet you still plan to share your technology with other species. A measured sharing, Sun Ho clarified. Gradual elevation, not instant transformation. What we became in our isolation, it required centuries of adaptation. To force such change too quickly would be destructive. In the following weeks, the first integration protocols began. Human engineers worked with representatives from each species, adapting their advanced technology to forms that could be safely implemented. The process would take decades, perhaps centuries, but the path was clear. Most surprising to many was the revelation of humanity's ultimate goal. They had not developed their power for dominance, but to preserve the diversity of galactic life. In their isolation, they had come to understand that technological advancement without cultural richness led to stagnation. The Void Collective had been the ultimate example of this. Technological perfection without purpose beyond consumption. 6 months after the battle, Minho completed his official record for the archives of civilization. As was tradition, he read the final passage aloud before sealing it. The return of humanity marked not conquest but reunion. Their centuries of silence had transformed them not into gods, but into guardians, beings who understood that true advancement comes not from power alone, but from the preservation of diversity. The technology they now share with their allies promises not uniformity, but enhancement of each species' unique nature. Perhaps most remarkable is what humanity sacrificed in their transformation. In becoming something beyond their original nature, they lost much of what defined them. Yet they retained what mattered most, the desire to protect life in all its forms, and the wisdom to understand that power without compassion leads only to emptiness. As we move forward into this new era, we do so not as subjects of human authority, but as partners in an ongoing evolution, each species contributing its unique perspective to a galactic community stronger than any single advancement could create. As Minho finished speaking, he noticed a figure standing in the doorway of the archive chamber. Admiral Jiho smiled slightly. "An eloquent summary," she said. "Is it accurate?" Minho asked. Jiho considered this. History is rarely simple. Some among us argued for dominance rather than partnership. The debate continues even now. But your core understanding is correct. We did not advance to rule, but to preserve. Outside the viewport of the archive chamber, a former Void Collective ship passed by, its crystalline structure now glowing with warm light rather than absorbing it. Its purpose rewritten, it now served as a living repository of knowledge, gathering information rather than consuming civilizations. "What happens next?" Minho asked. Admiral Jiho gazed at the transformed ship. "That is the most exciting question. For the first time in our long isolation, we cannot predict the future. With 17 species contributing to our shared evolution, the possibilities are infinite." As night fell across the assembly station, lights from 1,000 worlds reflected in the darkness of space. Humanity had returned not as conquerors, but as guardians. Not as gods, but as guides. And the galaxy would never be the same. The end.